Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the MB 800 How to Pass with QBS and Plataan. Thanks for your time in joining the session. My co-host Bosco Lopez is moderating with me, and we will get started. So, Bosco, if you could move over to the next slide, please. Most of you know me, so I'll be brief. I run the QBS Academy at QBS. And I'll be talking about what's on everyone's mind at the moment. So please, next slide. Partners have two things right now on their minds. We all have that feeling, certification versus competency. We want to make sure that we are clear about the dependencies in between the two and also how to look at them in two separate ways. So MB 800 certification is something that can be attained by an individual, whereas a competency, such as the SMB Cloud Business Applications, either silver or gold, is something that needs to be attained as a team. So today we are going to be concentrating on the point number one, MB 800 certification. Next slide, please. So starting from October, the MB 800 certification goes to beta, and this is going to be the first step for any Business Central partner. What I mean by partner is a person as well. Yeah, anyone can go and get themselves certified. There will be a threshold at some point communicated to the audiences of what the required number of certified functional consultants is going to be for a partner organization to claim that competency. Therefore, we move on now to the next slide. Oh, too fast. Here we go. The SMB Cloud Business Application is not available right now, so that cannot be attained by anybody. And we have got no official data as yet, but we can aim towards spring 2021 as a launch date. Details will be made available by Microsoft in due course. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide, please. So why choosing QBS and Plataan for passing MB 800 certification? Well, Plataan have been involved in the process of the exam design and planning together with Microsoft and other selected resources such as MVPs. So Plataan are well known for being the creators of the materials that you see today in the Microsoft Learn, and they are able to supply the students with an LMS system that grants them access to a process-driven learning. So every student has their own journey that can complete and that can be referenceable. And they act also as instructors, which means that from the start to finish, they can take questions from the participants throughout the learning journey and be contacted for clarifications, etc., etc. One thing that we will be seeing from their presentation, I'm about to hand it over to them very shortly, is that the MB 800 exam is a theoretical exam and is based on a series of parts. So there will be questions as there will be case studies. Therefore, even experienced NAV/Business Central consultants could find it daunting if they don't know how this is actually managed once you get into the exam interface. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to hand it over now to my co-presenters. Let me introduce you to Koen Stokes, who's going to be the first up, talking about the MB 800 exam drill down, and then over to Vincent Belfroy, who's going to talk about the programs that are available through us and through Plataan, and it will give you a kind of like overview of what the learning environment looks like so that people can understand how beneficial that can be throughout your journey. Okay, so over to you guys. Thanks. You're both on mute. Koen, you need to unmute.
All right, so there we go. So you should be able to hear me now. Okay, so thank you very much, Andy, and also from my side, welcome to this session. In the next couple of minutes, I will try to give you an idea of what to expect from the exam. So we will have a look at the audience profile, also the skills measured, some practical information that you might be interested in, then how to take the exam, then also the question types, because some of you may remember the old NEV exams that we had a couple of years ago, but things have changed. So what you see now is that there are different question types, like Andy already referred to. There's also a case study that could be included. So I will give you some information on that. And then also preparation. So preparation is also something that my colleague Vincent will talk about. But let's start with the audience profile. So if you could move to the next slide, thank you very much. So very important, the exam is targeted to the core functional consultant. And core is quite an important word here. So it means that the exam covers finance, trade and inventory, administration and configuration, but basically only for the basic functionalities, not for the advanced functionalities. And that's why it's very important that everyone that wants to take the exam has a good idea of the skills that are being measured, that we will look at in a few moments. But again, it's the core functional consultant, which basically also means that the exam is also targeted to junior consultants. So not only people that have many years of experience, but also a junior consultant with maybe only a limited experience can perfectly take the exam, of course, if they're well prepared. All right. So it's a functional consultant that implements and configures Business Central, and like I just said, the feature sets basically finance, trade and inventory, and then administration and configuration. All right, if we go to the next slides. So here you get an overview of the skills that are being measured. Now, this is, by the way, also information that you can find online on Microsoft Docs. So there you can also find the same information if you want to review it afterwards. But here you can see the different application areas, basically. So you will have questions on how to set up Business Central, how to configure financials, sales and purchasing, and also operations. And if we look at these application areas a bit more in detail on the next slide. Right, yeah, there we go. Setting up Business Central. So here again, you should keep in mind that we need to focus on the basic and the core functionalities. So this means that in case of setting up Business Central, you can expect questions on how to create new companies. Also very important to know is that Microsoft focuses on the cloud application, because you know that there is also on-prem, but all the questions are on the cloud application. So if you get questions on how to set up a new company, because you may know that there are differences between setting up a company in the on-prem and the cloud version, you can expect questions on the cloud version. Also, don't forget rapid start services, because that's still very important for Microsoft. So that's also included in the content for the exam. Then also security, core app functionality, also dimensions are included, and also workflows. Here it's important to know that the exam focuses on the native workflows, so not Power Automate. So Power Automate, as you may know, can also be used to set up workflows, but that's not part in this exam. So again, it's core functionality. All right. Then on the next slide, configure financials. So there you can expect questions on setting up the finance application area. So this is, for example, the general ledger setup, how to set up accounting periods, how to set up payment terms, and so on. Then, of course, the chart of accounts with its posting groups, journals, and then cash management, accounts receivable, and accounts payable. So what you see here is that the focus is on the daily routines, so daily financial management that we have in Business Central. So also not the advanced functions like, for example, prepayments and all these things are not included. Foreign currencies are not included in the exam. So it's the core financial functionality that is included. So on the next slide, the same for sales and purchasing. So how to set up inventory, configure master data, prices and discounts. Again, it's core functionality, so you will not find questions, for example, on item tracking or on assembly management, because that's considered as advanced functionality, which again is not part of this exam. And then the same goes for, if we look at the next slide, for operations. So Business Central operations. So there we have basic operations like how can we personalize the application, how can we use filters, navigate, inspect. So these are the core application functionalities. But then also, of course, the typical sales and purchase operations. All right. Also notice the last bullet, inventory costing. You can also expect, or you may also have questions, a couple of questions on inventory costing. Not really the deep dive, but the basic inventory costing functions like costing methods and the setup that you can do in the inventory setup. And so again, it's all about the core functionality in all these different application areas. All right. So that's the skills that are being measured. Then some practical information. So as you may already know, the release date of the beta is around October 6th. So in a few days time, so beginning of next week. Prices in West, North and South Europe, it's €165, and in Europe East, it's between $80 and €100, depending on the country that you're in. Language is English, so there's no other language. Everything is in English. And then the number of questions and the duration is just like any other dynamics exam. So you can expect between 40 and 60 questions, and you have 120 minutes or 2 hours to complete the exam. Okay, so that's the practical information. But again, this is also information that you can find online, by the way. Then if we move to the next slide, so how can you take the exam? So you can go to a Pearson VUE exam center, but what is new compared to the old NEV exams that you might have experienced with it is that you can now take the exam at home or at the office. Of course, there are some conditions that should be met. You should have an internet connection. You should have a webcam, a microphone. And that's why if you want to take the exam from home or at the office, you need to run a system test in advance. So here you can see a URL with more detailed information on that, because nowadays with all the corona measures, we can imagine that a lot of people would like to take the exam from home or at the office. Perfectly possible, but you might want to check all the conditions and the requirements that you need to meet before you can take the exam. And again, you can find the information here on this URL. All right. Okay, then the question types. So like I said in the introduction, maybe some of you have experience with the old exams. And in the old exams, we only had multiple choice questions. But what you will see now is that we can have different question types. Of course, there are still the multiple choice questions that everyone knows. And the examples, by the way, that you see here are not the actual or are not coming from the actual exams. These are just example questions I made up, but they will give you a good idea of the question types that you can expect. And a multiple choice question, like everyone knows, a question with different question options. Sometimes one option is valid, sometimes multiple options are valid. Like you can see here, for example, in this question, there are 2 options that you should select. So that's a question type that everyone knows. But that's not the only question type. If we go to the next slide, you will also see question types that we call build lists. So basically, these are questions where you get a number of options that you need to put in the right sequence. So these questions, basically, in most cases, are on processes. Processes in which you need to take different steps. So, for example, here, how can you send a PDF invoice by email to a customer? And then you can see a number of steps, and you need to put the steps into the right sequence. So, for example, first we have to set up a document sending profile. We need to assign the profile to the customer, and so on. So that's a question type that we call build lists. So the exam will also include questions of this type. So that's something new. That's something that we didn't used to have before. Then there is drag and drop. So here you can also see an example. On item features at the left side, you can see a short description. And then at the right side, you can see the actual feature in Business Central. And of course, you have to drag and drop the feature to the right description. Okay. Also, this is a question I made up, but it should give you an idea of what a drag and drop question is. So also this is now included in the exam. All right. And then on the next slide, the case study. So Andy already referred to it, a case study. So each exam will also include a case study. Now, very important with the case study, first, you get the case study on a fictive company. So it's a company description. Like, for example, Contoso is a company offering computer products to their customers, and so on and so on. So you get a whole description on the items that the company sells, how many people work there, the type of customers they have, and so on. So, and then you get information in the case study, like, for example, the company has a central warehouse and 2 regional warehouses. And then there are questions on the case study. And for these questions, you need to know, of course, the Business Central functionality. So you need to know the features and what they include. But you also need to look at the information in the case study. For example, here you can see if the company wants to replenish items in the local warehouses from the central warehouse, how do they need to configure Business Central? So this means that you need to know information on, for example, reordering policies or replenishment systems, but you also need to look in the case study itself because it's important to know that there is a central warehouse and, for example, regional warehouses. All right. Also, this is just an example, of course, but that should give you an idea of what a case study is in the exam. So again, it's a company description, and then there are some questions on the case study. All right, so that's also included in the exam that will be released in a couple of days time. Okay, so these are the different question types. Now, how can you prepare? Well, first of all, there's as you probably know, there's a lot of information on Microsoft Learn. So that's important. So there's a lot of information out there. Most of the content has been made by us. So we know the content that is out there. And we know that Microsoft Learn contains more information than is required for the exam. So that's important to know, of course, because you can, of course, use the information on Microsoft Learn, but know that it includes more information than you need to know for the exam. At the other hand, it also doesn't contain all the information that is required for the exam. So currently, for example, on Microsoft Learn, you won't find learning paths or modules on the native workflows, but native workflows are included in the exam. You see, so and that's also something that you should be aware of. Not all the information that you need for the exam is available on Microsoft Learn. And that's why my colleague Vincent will also present or give you some more information on the other options that you have to prepare yourself for the exam. All right, so over to you, Vincent.
Okay, thank you, Koen. Thank you for the presentation. So like my colleague Koen said, there will be, can you go back to the previous slide, please? Yeah, thank you. So there will be also an instructor-led training, which will be created in the upcoming months, and that will be available in the beginning of 2021. So it's an instructor-led training. That means that this is basically a train-the-trainer package that will be available to trainers, and they can roll it out in the different training centers across Europe and any other place. So you might expect a 5-day instructor-led course becoming available in the beginning of next year. And that course will include all the elements that are relevant for the exam. Now, what are we going to present today? What is it that we are offering to you is actually a training package that you can start as of today, so you can prepare already from today. We can go to the next slide. And this package is called businesscentralbooster.com. I think some of you might already know it because we started it last year and we already trained a few hundred consultants so far with it. But what is the purpose of this package? It's designed as an online learning program, but not just any online learning program. It's an active learning program that is really designed to engage students. Because one of the biggest problems with online learning materials is that you have a very high dropout rate, and that is because students are not really engaged and they have no a time box for it. So this program really is engaging students with problem-centric case-based approach. That means that we have implemented a case study, a story actually, which is a real implementation story. So basically this exercise is going to resemble a real life implementation. So at the same time, students will have theoretical content and they will be able to practice that in a real life scenario. And that's implemented throughout the entire program. So it's really a program. It's not just a bulk load of videos and digital content, but it is a way which is guided and the student is led to progress in a sequential way. It's self-paced, so that means it's a little bit more flexible than classroom training in the way that students can really organize their time themselves. They can start in the morning and then stop after a few hours, work again, and then when they have some time available, they can do it, continue their learning effort again. But it is with a deadline. That means that they will have some time pressure, they will have some objectives, they will be forced to finish this program in a certain time frame. And when you think about the time frame, just if we look at preparation for MB 800, the instructor-led classroom will be around a 5-day course. So that means like 40 hours. I think you can see this online Business Central Booster package that we will use for exam preparation to be a little bit like the same. So you will have to spend like around 40 hours, but you can, consume it in 1 week or in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, for instance. It's supported, it's an online program, it's virtual training, but it is supported, and that's a big difference. Students can contact us at any time, so they always have, let's say, a lifeline with us. They can email us, they can chat with us, and we will respond. And if necessary, we set up additional meetings with them. So whenever they are feeling like blocked or there's some uncertainty, they can ask us questions. And in the end, they can also check with their colleagues because we have implemented peer learning through discussion forums. So they're always supported, they're never alone. They will learn self-paced, but they have a network to fall back on when they have issues. Next slide. So here you can get an idea of the look and feel of this program. So every student will have a home page where they have all the modules for which they have subscribed, and by clicking on it, they get access to that course. They also see the discussion forums on the right-hand side. Can go to the next slide. And here you can get a little bit of a feeling of how the content looks like. This is, for instance, an example of an assignment where you can see that it's about cost accounting, and you see that there is a scenario, and then later on students get questions about it, and they have to resolve that in Business Central. We set up a Business Central trial, or they have to do that themselves. They learn how to do that and so on. You can click again. It also includes video material, so you will have your own virtual instructor who is explaining on how to do things and will guide you through that process. You can click again, Bosco. We have assignments, but we also have recorded videos with a solution for this assignment. So if first a student needs to make the assignment, and then when they finish, they can see the solution of that assignment. So they will also learn how to do things. We have content pages that mix up videos with written content, for instance. You can click again, Bosco. Yeah, and then every time when you're finished with something, you can indicate that it is completed, and only then you can move to the next step. So it's really sequential learning. You will build up throughout the whole learning journey. We have all kinds of assignments with different scenarios. Like I said before, it's real life based. And we also have assessments in it. So here you can see this is an example actually where you also need to drag and drop and put answers in the right kind of sequence, but each training module ends with an assessment at the end. And when they finish the assessment, they can have certifications and badges. Each student can also follow up on their own progress. So on the dashboard, they will find possibilities to see like how many hours did I study, what is my progress, how far am I from the end, and so on. So it's totally manageable for the students themselves. Next slide. Yeah, so it's also rewarding because if you do the entire Business Central Booster program, you're really prepared for practice. So it's not only theoretical knowledge, but you will be able to set your first steps in real life implementations because you exercised it in the scenario. So you will have an idea as a student on how a business implementation will go as a functional consultant. But also you are also rewarded with badges and certifications. So like you said, when you take the assessment at the end of each module, you will get a badge that rewards you with that with the skills that you gained at that moment. And you can of course share that on social media. Next slide. Yeah, this slide will give you an idea, but maybe hard to read, but you can see that we have different bigger modules or trainings within that program. And the first one is onboarding, which is actually leading you through typical things like setting up your environments, migrating data, the user interface, all those kinds of things. And then we have a program which is called Core Product Specialist. And the Core Product Specialist is actually basically focused also on what the content of the exam is. So if you want to prepare for the exam, you can start with the Core Product Specialist, and that will give you all the information theoretically that you need to pass the exam. Once you're through that, you can build a way further with the Advanced Product Specialist, which goes into a little bit more complicated areas like, for instance, cost accounting, fixed assets, and inventory replenishment. And if you still want to learn more, you can take the Premium Specialist, which adds service management, warehouse management, and manufacturing to that learning program. And at the end, like you can see here, at the end of each of these programs, you get a badge and you get a certificate. So that also allows you to prepare well, of course, for MB 800. It's a managed program. So like Andy already mentioned, we do that in the learning management system. We can see the progress of each student. The student can see their own progress. And we can also send out reports to companies to see how their students are actually evolving in the program. The LMS also includes a number of automated emails, for instance, where that a student that hasn't logged in for a certain time is again chased a little bit like, you need to log in again and you need to build a little bit on your program. So we included a number of motivational things. We are following up on students ourselves as well. So we are in contact with them as well. Next slide. So, and you see that we have already very good feedback from a number of reference cases. We have trained like 200 students in less than a year in this program, and everybody is kind of positive about it. So I think we have a very good program. So that's about it for me on the Business Central Booster program. I hand it over again to Andy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Koen and Vincent. So we're just going to look at the pricing for these programs within the QBS Academy, and also introducing a special offer for Q4 of this calendar year. Bosco, next slide, please. So just to recap what Vincent explained really well, the MB800 can be achieved via two routes that are essentially the same through the same program. We have the Advanced Specialist Booster, and that's ideal for a new starter or an ERP switcher. What do I mean by that? Someone who's been hired from a compete ERP. And then we have the MB800 Core Product Specialist that is designed for experienced NAV BC resources who just want to pass the exam. They don't need to be trained on manufacturing, or they need to be trained on service management, for instance. Okay, next slide, please. So what we have currently live in the Academy, we had it for probably about 7 or 8 months now, is the Advanced Specialist Boosters that are aligned to Essentials and Premium licenses. And this is the price. So you can put for instance, a brand new resource that you hire on the Essentials for 3 training vouchers or 1,350 euros per student. Or you can go with a premium option, and that's 4 training vouchers and 1,800 euros per student. Like I said before, ideal for both like junior hires and experienced ERP coming into the Business Central fold. So what you actually gain out of the full boosters is that you get the certainty of MB800 readiness, plus you train on other areas that will give you the required certificates to say that you have been trained as an implementer. Okay, so next one, please. So we have a testimonial thanks to Experience Group in the UK, who have trained so far 5 consultants using the booster. So probably you can't read that very well, it's quite small, but thanks to them for giving us the testimonial. And they have used the booster program with a mixture of talent. So brand new students straight from university into their consulting practice, and also cross-training a couple of Sage seasoned consultants to migrate over to Business Central, and they are very satisfied with the way that the booster has empowered these resources. So next one, please. So what's new, and what I mean by new additions means that they do not, as of today, exist in the Academy, but we are in the process of setting them up, so bear with us. We're going to have 2 different packages. So next one, please. So we mentioned the MB800 Core Product Specialist Exam Preparation Pack, which is aligned with the core that Vincent has spoken about, and that is for 1 person. So if you have Business Central Advanced Specialist Essentials, you have 2 training vouchers in there, and 900 euros is the cost. And that aligns you to the core part, which is what's needed for passing the exam. And this is going to be perfect for existing consultants that need to pass the exam. And also in the ideal scenario where, let's project ourselves 6 months, 12 months from now, everyone wants to own the badge to say I'm MB800 certified. And there could be a situation where they've been excluded from a certification because in a bigger company where they're working today, they may already have X amount of people certified for a competency perspective, and therefore they didn't get given a chance. Then this person may move to another company, and then it becomes a requirement for them to get certified so that they help the new company to attain a competency. So this will be effectively a package that will remain active in months and years to come. Okay. Next slide, please. And we are now introducing the Q4 limited offer. So buy before the end of this year, when you can get 5 consultants trained up through this program for this particular price. So that's 3,150 euros or 7 QBS training vouchers. And there is a note that you cannot see there because it's too small. That says for Spain is actually 8 training vouchers. That's due to local pricing constraints. So you actually save 33.33%, or a third off the RRP price that would be then coming into place from the 1st of January 2021. So this offer will be pushed out to the Academy and to the websites very soon. So if you move over to the next slide, then please, Bosco. So when will the new additions be available? We are adamant that we want them to be in the Academy and on the website to coincide with plus or minus the 6th of October when the beta program becomes available. So for the time being, please do contact us at training@qbsgroup.com or reach out directly to your local QBS contact, your